Hey guys, welcome to week 7. Holy moly, I cannot believe that we are here. Today we are going to be doing the core. Now the core really represents a lot more than just the belly. We're going to be kind of this week looking at sort of all of the muscles that are integrated when we're trying to keep essentially the spine safe, the spine, and keep the pelvis quite stabilized as well. Remember what I said, all core work is breathing work, all breathing is core work. So the most important thing that you're doing throughout this week is making sure that you're breathing. If you're not breathing, you're not going to be engaging those core muscles properly at all. So we're going to start lying on our backs. We're going to do a bit of breath work, and then we're going to get to know those stabilizing muscles. So coming onto the back, and I want you to take your feet wide, knees knock towards each other, and then place your hands onto your belly. And then just close the eyes. Let the body be heavy. Let the feet be heavy. Backs of the elbows, backs of the head, shoulders, and backs of the hips. And just take a moment to tune in to how you're feeling. Take a moment to tune in to what's kind of buzzing around the mind. And just start to slow the breath down. So we're going to want to focus today. We're going to be learning some new poses. And we're going to be learning some different ways to kind of move in and out of these poses. Like always, I'll be showing lots of different variations, modifications. And just remember to not get frustrated, okay? So take whatever step that you're on and dedicate yourself to that, not worrying about what the next step is or what other people might be doing. You're on your journey, no one else's. And if you have any fears, preconceived notions about core work, I want you to just put them to the side. Not all core work is going to be terribly strenuous and uncomfortable and painful. Okay, it should never be painful. Some of the poses we do today, you're going to have to really dig deep. And for a lot of us, the reason why it feels like such an exertion is because we're just not used to engaging our core properly. And if that's what I can teach you this week, to get reacquainted with those muscles and use the core when you're walking around, when you're picking up groceries, when you're doing day-to-day tasks, that's more important than, being able to do some of the poses that I'll teach you today and over the next week. So just normal breathing here, maybe slightly longer. Notice that the inhale's quite active. And then the exhale is really passive, like the breath just kind of comes out of the body. And just explore this. Inhaling, feeling that active chest expanding, ribs expanding. And the exhale, everything kind of just floats back to the midline, drawing back in. Good. Okay, we're going to switch this up and we're going to make our exhales quite active as well. So when we exhale, we're going to squeeze all of the muscles around the sides of the waist, the belly, the abdomen, and the rib cage. So you're going to compress the breath out. So take a nice big inhale. And then as you exhale, squeeze, 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 and push the breath out, almost like you're squeezing a lemon. Nice. I want you to do 10 of these. So you're just going to start to stoke the core muscles, fire them up, really squeezing the belly, getting rid of all of that breath. Nice. Stay with that 7 more, okay? keep squeezing as much of the torso as you can, as much of the rib cage, anywhere that you think might get a drop more of air out of the torso, out of the thoracic chamber. Last 4. Nice. And then after that last breath, just return to natural inhale and exhale. I really like that exercise to just get those core muscles kind of fired up. And then windshield wipe the knees a couple of times just to bring a bit of movement in. So the next exercise or activity that we're going to do is called a pelvic clock. And I'm just going to get us to engage with those stabilizing muscles on specific parts of the abdomen, as well as integrating the torso, not the torso, the pelvis. Okay, so the pelvis is super important when it comes to the core. And when we tilt our pelvis certain ways, the core releases and lets go. So before we come to the pelvic clock, let's just work on coming in and out of posterior and anterior tilt. So let your lower back just go to neutral and take your hands onto the bony bit of your hip bones, okay? Now, take an inhale, and as you exhale, I want you to bring the bony bit of your hip bones up towards your last rib, and I want you to push your lower back into the floor. So just do that now. So like you're pulling the hip towards the rib, and at the same time, you're pushing the lower back down. And then release as you inhale, and you'll feel your hip glide down towards the bum or towards the heels. On your exhale, draw the hip up, push the lower back down. Now I'm not lifting my tailbone off the floor, so if you're like totally lifting, don't do that. And then inhale, release. Good, so just continue to move like this. The exhale is where I want you to push the lower back down and hip comes towards the rib. And the inhale is when you're going to let the lower back lift and the hip bone is going to slide back down towards the knees. Good. Keep moving like this. So you understand the movement of the pelvis. And just for those who want to know the name, when you exhale and push the lower back down, you're coming into what's called posterior tilt. And when you let the hips go soft, you let the lower back lift, this is anterior tilt. Okay, so posterior lower back presses down, anterior lower back lifts away. Now keep one of your hands on your hips, keep moving in and out, but then take one of your hands onto your belly. And I want you to notice that when you push the lower back down, your belly starts to engage. And then when you let the lower back lift, hip bones slide away from the ribs, your belly goes soft. So just start to notice this. When you push the lower back down, you have muscles around the abdomen that engage, core muscles. And then when you release that, they all soften. So this lets us know one thing. Two. It lets us know that when we come into anterior tilt, the core tends to soften and let go. And when we come into posterior tilt, the core automatically engages. Now, this is going to be really important when we come into some of our core poses. If you can remember that the posterior tilt, or where the hip comes a little bit towards the rib, your core engages. And if you let the rib and the hip splay away from each other, then the core releases. Alrighty, so let that go. Okay, I'll talk about that a lot over this week. Now let's make it a little bit more dynamic. So I want you to imagine that your belly button is 12 o'clock and that your pubic bone is 6 o'clock and that your left hip is 3 o'clock and that your right hip is 9 o'clock. So you've got a clock face on half of the abdomen and your pelvis, okay? So belly button is 12, left hip is 3, pubic bone is 6, and your right hip is 9. Good, that's always a challenge for me to remember. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna imagine that we've got a little ball bearing hanging out in the middle of all of those numbers. And we're gonna move that ball bearing to the different clock hands, okay? So you can just take your hands by your sides, let the lower back go neutral. So when the lower back is neutral, then the ball bearing just rests in the center. Good, okay, so now I want you to roll the ball bearing towards 12. You're gonna have to pull the hip bone towards the rib to make that ball bearing roll towards the chest. Good, then go back to neutral. Let's take the ball bearing to 6. Okay, you're gonna have to almost like arc the lower back higher off the floor and press your tailbone down. Good, bring the spine back to neutral. Okay, let's take it over to 3 o'clock. Okay, so you're gonna feel different muscles on the sides of the body engaging. You're probably gonna be squeezing the right side of the waist to feel like you're lifting and engaging to send it to 3. Good, release, come back to center. Let's take that ball bearing over to 9. Yeah, squeezing the left side of the waist to send it down that way. Nice, back to center. Okay, so let's go in a circle now. So we're gonna go back to the starting point each time. So take it to 12. Good, back to center. Take it to 3. Yeah. Back to center. Take it to 6. Back to center. And then take it to 9. Nice, back to center. Okay, so hopefully you can feel all those tiny little core muscles working. Let's now move the ball bearing around the clock. So bring it to center and let's take it to 12. And now transition from 12 to 3. Yeah, good. Now transition from 3 to 6. Feel those different core muscles working. Transition from 6 to 9. Good. And then transition from 9 to 12. Nice. Okay, take it around 3 more times. So you're just kind of massaging all of these different muscles around the pelvis and around the abdomen. Now you should be able to breathe really easily. Okay, like I said, not all core work is going to kill you. These are really tiny stabilizing muscles that we kind of want to wake up and get to know. Remember, we're developing proprioception, so this might feel really abstract, really awkward to you right now. You might be like, why the hell is Megan getting us to do this? I promise there is a reason. Nice, and then come back to center, let the ball bearing rest in the center. And now let's go counterclockwise. So to get back to 12, and then go to 9, go to 6, go to 3, and go to 12. Nice, take it 3 more times. So cruising around the clock. Okay. Imagine that you were reaching for your seatbelt, or you were reaching to pick up your child, or you were reaching to pick up a heavy bag of groceries. These different muscles could engage to help to protect your spine, keep your pelvis stable while you go to use that motion. But most of us just reach without engaging the core, and then we end up often pulling muscles in our back, especially the lower back. So the lower back is quite strong and it will engage to take on the load, but it doesn't have to take it all. Good, okay, back to center. Right, that was fairly easy because we're not really lifting any weight. We're just engaging the muscles. So we're going to work on keeping these muscles engaged, but we're going to start to put a little bit of weight on them. The weight being your actual limbs, your legs. Okay, so we're going to do 3 different variations. You can stop and stay with the same variation as soon as it might get too difficult. So hands beside you. Now, before we start moving, I want you to watch me. We are going to move from the hips. Okay, so what we're going to do is lift one leg and then place the leg back down. Now, every time I teach this, people go like this and move the knee. Don't move the knee. The knee stays exactly like it is, as if you've got a knee brace around that kneecap and it won't move. And instead, you move from the hip, place that foot back down, move from the hip, opposite leg, place that foot back down. I'm not bending or changing the bend in my knee at all. So that is the simple movement. That's all we're doing. We're lifting one leg from the hip, place it back down, lifting the other leg from the hip, place it back down. Now, as we do this, those different muscles are going to engage, but the whole time we want to be in a posterior tilt. So take an inhale, and as you exhale, I want you to press your lower back down and stay. Okay, so lower back's pressing down, hip bone is coming towards the rib. You've got this engagement and you're just hanging out. Okay, so you should feel the core working, but you're probably able to breathe. It's not too hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to stay in this position with the stabilizing muscles firing to protect our spine, but we're going to start to move. We're going to start to apply more weight or more tension into these muscles. So when you're ready, you're going to lift your right leg from the hip. You don't have to bring that leg all the way up. I just tend to bring my knee directly on top of my hip and then place that leg back down. Now keep the lower back pressing into the mat. Do the same with your left leg and then press it back down. Good. We're going to do 5 on each side. So lifting and lowering. Make sure you're breathing. It's not fast, okay? So you're not doing this. It's nice and slow and controlled. And lowering, keeping that lower back pressing down. Now, as you lift different limbs, you might feel the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock engaging. Okay, so those sides firing a little bit more. Keep pressing the lower back down. If you're getting pain in your lower back, it's probably because you're not pushing the lower back down enough, or you're just not ready. So you might not even lift that high. You might take it really, really tiny. Or you might just start to come back to that release and push, release and push, okay? Let's do 1 more on each side. Good. And then once you get there, you can take a windshield wipe with the knees. Let the lower back release. Good. Nice. So you stay where you are, just releasing any tension. And I'm going to demonstrate what we're going to do next. So we're now going to keep the weight of both of those legs up. So what we're going to do is lift the legs and then drop the toes so you can't see the toes. Press the lower back down. Again, moving from the hip, bringing one foot towards the floor. I'm not even going all the way down. Lifting back up. And then the other. Again, not changing the bend in the knee, but moving from those hips. So let's see if we can do this one. If this is pulling on your lower back, come back to the other one where we're just lifting the legs, okay? So take an inhale. Exhale, press the lower back down, then lift those feet. Good. Look at the toes and then drop the feet until the toes just disappear so you can't see them anymore. Good. Take a big inhale. And as you exhale, move from your right hip and just bring that right leg down just a bit towards the floor. Bring it back up. And then the same with the left. Move slow. Make sure you're breathing. And again, we're going to do 5 on each side. If this gets uncomfortable, come back to the other variation. Make sure you're pushing lower back down. Okay, you've got 4 more. If this is really uncomfortable, you can grip the sides of your mat. Sometimes this helps people, so holding onto the side of the mat. But if it is really uncomfortable, I would say come back to this variation and just work on lifting the legs, okay? This is about training the muscles. It's not about racing. 2 more on each side. Keep that lower back pressing down. Last one on each side. Good. And then grab those knees, take a sway from side to side. Just releasing any kind of tension you might have. You can always take those knees in a big circle. Okay, so I said we were going to do 3 different variations of basically this same engagement. So again, watching me. In this variation, both legs come up to the sky. Don't worry if the legs are straight, that doesn't matter. Push the lower back down. Now, this is where people's egos get in the way and they just go, yep, I can bring that leg all the way down. Yep, no problem. Problem is that as people are doing this, as their leg is coming down, their lower back is lifting. The core completely releases as they go into that anterior tilt, and all they're doing is pulling in their lower back. So instead of racing down, you're going to push the lower back towards the floor. You're going to find that point where you're like, ooh, yep, I can't go any further. My lower back will lift. And then you lift that leg back up. Some of you, this is going to be as far as you go. Totally fine. Some of you might be able to come quite far. I can really go to about here with my lower back pressing down. Probably only be able to do about 3 of them. So if that's too intense, you can come back to this variation, or you can come back to feet on the floor, this variation, okay? You can skip it out if it's just not vibing with you. So hands down by your sides. Lift those feet up to the sky. Don't worry if they're straight. Then push the lower back down, okay? So it's like a lift of the hip towards the rib. Take an inhale. And as you exhale, slowly start to drop the right leg. Okay, find that point where you're like, oh God, yeah, that's intense, but my lower back is still pressing down. Then lift that leg back up. Good, do the same with the left. Explore, okay? This is, you're not gonna win an award from me. Good, let's do 5 on each side. Okay, only go to a point where you feel in control and where you feel like you're being really honest with your back. The last thing I want to happen to you guys is that you kind of pull a muscle in your back. That's not fun. No one loves it. Okay? You are training these muscles to engage. They're going to be weak to start, especially because you're asking them to move properly. Whew. Good. 2 more on each side. Last one on each side. Good. And then bend those knees. Take a little rock from side to side, just releasing any tension. And then we're going to rock and roll up and over the knees, coming into tabletop. If that's not possible, guys, just roll over to your side, whatever you need to do. So coming up and over. Ooh, and let's just take a little child's pose. So big toes come to touch, sit the butt back. Take a nice big stretch. Good, and then pull yourself back up and into tabletop. Alrighty, so finding that tabletop nice and active, pushing into the hands, widening the collarbones, drawing the hips a little bit towards the ribs. Good, let's start to move through those cat-cows. So as the belly drops, belly releases, we're coming into anterior tilt, butt goes high, chest lifts. And then as we exhale, core starts to engage. We're pulling the hip into the rib. We're coming into posterior tilt, okay? You guys should be starting to get really comfortable with these tilts of the pelvis. So just explore the movement of the pelvis and the relationship to the core, the relationship to the engagement and the release. Good, and then find that neutral tabletop again. So drawing that hip a little bit towards the ribs, actively pressing into those hands. Good. From here, you're going to tuck your right toe and drag that right toe behind you. Kick into the heel, feel that lovely stretch. And then lift that foot off the mat. Okay, so we're going to do some knee to noses. So take an inhale. And as you exhale, you're going to start to bring the knee in. Don't worry how close you get it towards the chest. Round the back, and then from here, suck that thigh up in towards the belly, in towards the chest. Re-extend as you inhale, kick into that heel, grow through the heel and the crown of the head. Exhale, bringing that knee in, suck the knee in as much as you can, round the back. Good, let's do 2 more. Inhale, nice and long. Exhale, draw it in, round the back. Inhale, nice and long. And then exhale, bringing that knee in. Good. Placing that knee down, we'll go straight to the other side. Tucking the left toe, dragging it behind you, kicking into that heel, and then lifting that foot off the mat, making sure those hands are underneath the shoulders. Take a big inhale. As you exhale, start to bring that left knee in. Suck the belly round the back. re-extend, kick into the heel. You're looking down, not forwards. Exhale, knee comes in, suck that knee in. Re-extend, kick into the heel, grow through the crown of the head, and then bring that knee in. Good. Bring the knee down. If you need to give the wrists a little break, drop back, maybe move the fingers. Good. Okay, so we're going to come back into tabletop. And this time we're going to use the arm as well. So tuck the right toe, drag that right toe behind you. Lift that foot off of the mat. Now, if you can, you're going to take that left hand forwards and lift the left hand. If this is just too hard, keep the hand down, stay with the knee. Otherwise, hand is forwards. Try to get the bicep in line with the ear rather than the hand down. Thumb faces up. Take a big inhale, and as you exhale, you're going to bring elbow and knee towards each other. Re-extend. So either moving with arm and leg or just moving with that knee. Do 2 more. Opening out as you inhale. Exhaling, bringing it in. Good. Finding that extension again. We're going to hold here for 5. Hand down or extended for 4. 3, 2, 1. Hand comes down, knee comes down. We go straight to the other side. Tuck left toe, drag it behind you. Kick into the heel. And then lift that foot off the mat. Taking right hand forwards. Then if you can, lifting that right hand. Big inhale here. Either moving elbow towards the knee as you exhale or just moving with that knee. Keeping the hand on the mat. 3 more here. Exhale, rounding. Inhale, re-extending. Good. Really getting those stabilizing muscles to engage as we move. Finding that extension. We hold here for 5. Keep the gaze down for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hand comes down, knee comes down. Let's sit back in the bum. Give the wrists a little break. Take a stretch. Make sure you're breathing. Good. And then looking to those hands, we're going to come back up and into tabletop. Alrighty, coming into plank. So we're going to take it step by step. Plank pose. Spread the fingers nice and wide. Make sure that those wrists are underneath the shoulders. Then from here, pull the forearms in towards each other and externally rotate the bicep. So the top of the bicep is going out behind you. Then from here, broaden across those collarbones and make sure you're looking down. Draw the hip a little bit towards the belly. Option 1, stay here. Option 2, you're going to tuck your right toe and drag the right toe behind you. Okay? Pushing actively. Some of you might push so much in that right foot that your left knee lifts. Okay? If you can do this, stay for 5, 4, pushing into those hands, 3, 2, 1. Drop the left knee, drop the right knee, tuck the left toe, drag the left toe behind you. Start to externally rotate, broaden the collarbones, push into the hands, push into the foot on that left foot, and then see if you can just gently suck that right knee off the floor. Staying here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Place the knee down. Take a little break. Okay, you're going to feel this in the shoulders. You're going to feel this around the spine. Shoulders are part of the core. Basically, anything that attaches to the torso is core. Okay, so we're going to do 3 rounds of plank holds. The first one is going to be a count of 10. Second one's going to be a count of 15. And the third one is going to be a count of 20. So option 1 is to come into the full variation of plank. Option 2 is a slightly easier plank. Okay, I'll show you that in a second. And option 3 is just holding a tabletop, but very active tabletop. Okay, so we know tabletop. If you don't want to come into full plank, you're going to walk your knees slightly back, then bring the shoulders over the wrists and draw the belly slightly in. So you're kind of on an angle here. and it's going to feel more intense. Those who are coming into full plank, you slide one foot behind you, and then instead of just lifting the knee, you're going to bring the other foot up. So find your variation of plank. Make sure you're pushing into the hands. If this is too intense, drop the knees, okay? Good. Let's hold for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, looking down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Gently drop the knees. Take any position that works for you. If you can sit on the heels, do that. Maybe just drop into a child's pose. Give the wrists a little bit of movement. Okay, you're going to feel it in the wrists. Know that the tabletop variation and the knees down variation, that is totally fine. As long as you're working on all those engagement points, you are going to be strengthening your core. All right, no rest for the wicked. Let's come into round 2. This is going to be a 15 count hold. So always starting with tabletop, pushing the floor away, externally rotating those biceps, broad collarbones, draw the hips in, maybe extending those legs, squeeze the butt. Let's hold for 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, push into those fingers, 10, 9, 8, 7, lengthen from crown of head to heels, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Knees come down. Take any restorative pose. Catching your breath. Whew. Maybe feeling a little bit warmer. Okay, last round. This is going to be 20. If you're in full plank, maybe hold for 10. If you can't hold for 20, just drop the knees, but keep that activation going. So walking the hands out, pushing into the hands, rounding and engaging serratus, open up the shoulders, draw the feet back if you're coming into that full variation, squeeze the bum, let's go, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. From here, guys, I want you to drop the knees and come all the way onto the belly. Just letting one cheek come onto the floor, arms behind you. And just find your breath. Nice. So that's a lot of anterior, okay? It's a lot of the abdomen, the side, and serratus. We're going to give those muscles a little break, and we're going to work on the posterior chain. By posterior chain, I mean the back body, okay? So we often don't think of the back body as part of the core, but trust me, it is, okay? If you want to protect your spine, you definitely want to protect the muscles on the back, okay? They're the closest to the spine. So from here, bring your hands onto the floor just by the chest. Now, zip the legs as close together as you can get them and start to press the tops of the feet down. Now, press the pubic bone down. We're not lifting yet, guys. I want you to suck the shoulder blades down the back and squeeze them together, okay? Now, you might even feel the muscles in the back starting to work. You're not going to push into the hands. They're just going to be here as little guides. Now, as you inhale, I want you to just kind of hold. And as you exhale, you're going to squeeze and lift. Lower down as you inhale. And exhale. Good. Lower down. We're going to do 10 of these. It doesn't matter how high you go. Just make sure you're not pushing into those hands because we actually want the back to work. So if you are tempted, just bring the hands off the mat. Okay, 7 more. Keep squeezing the shoulders together. Keep gliding the shoulder blades down the back. Keep pushing the pubic bone down. Squeeze the bum. Squeeze the bum. Pressing the tops of the feet down. People have a real tendency to want to lift the legs. Keep the legs flat. 5 more. Squeeze in and lift. And lower. Good. Keep going. Last 3. Posterior chain work can be really frustrating because it's tough. because we are using a lot of power and we're barely moving. Good. And then come down, wiggle the bum, let the bum release. You can bring the arms by your sides. And just letting the body kind of soften here. Good. So we were just working in and out of cobra in that. We're now going to work into a pose called locust, okay? So it's essentially the same. Arms are just going to be in a different position. So arms are now going to go down by the sides of the body, palms facing the mat. Now bring the legs back together-ish. Some of you might not be able to get the legs all the way together. Press the tops of the feet down, press the pubic bone down. Take an inhale. And as you exhale, start to lift your chest and your nose off the mat. Now, what I don't want you to do is take the gaze forwards, crease the back of the neck. So the gaze stays down. Slide the shoulder blades down the body and try to squeeze them together. Good, and we're just gonna hold, make sure you're breathing for 5. This is the hardest thing. Loads of people hold their breath here for 4. Make sure that's not you. 3, 2, and 1. Lower one cheek onto the floor. You can let the whole body kind of soften, relax, let go. Good. And then setting yourself up for another round. Hands on the floor, palms face down. Take the nose so that it's facing the floor. Squeeze the legs together-ish. Push the tops of the feet down, push the pubic bone down. Take a big inhale. As you exhale, lift the chest, lift the nose. Good. Take an inhale. And as you exhale, you're going to lift your right leg. Good. Lower the right leg back down. The next time that you inhale, you're going to lift the left leg. Good. We're going to do 3 for each side. So every time you inhale, let it drop. Every time you exhale, lift the opposite leg up. Now you might feel your hip bone pressing into the mat. If you're really bony, you might want to pad up your mat, okay? Some people, this can really bother their hips. Good. One more on each side. Keep that chest lifting. Don't let that chest and that head lower down. And then release. You can let the palms of the hands face up. You can shuffle in the hips, just kind of convincing the muscles of the body that they can let go. Okay, so we're going to do one more round. This round is simply going to be squeezing the legs together and lifting both legs off the mat. Now, if that isn't comfortable, sometimes people feel this pinch in their lower back. I want you to do one leg lifts or just work on the upper torso. So, nose faces down, bring the legs towards each other. Press the tops of the feet down, press the pubic bone down. Start to exhale, lift the chest. Now, if you can, lift both legs and then see if you can lift the hands. This is full locust pose. We stay and breathe. If this is too much, just lower one leg, lower the other leg, or just work on the upper body. Okay, we're gonna stay for 10. Breathe. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Bring your hands onto the floor by the chest. You're going to slowly push yourself into tabletop, bringing the knees towards each other. And then you're going to come into a counter pose. Now, some of you are just going to kind of come into this forearms down, letting the belly rest on the thighs. Some of you are going to be able to bring the head down, backs of the arms release. Okay, doesn't matter where you are. You're just taking the spine into a curve, opposite of what we've just been doing. So just catching your breath here. Ooh. Posterior work always takes it out of me. It really, really, really feels like so much effort, and I barely ever feel like I'm coming off the mat. Nice. And then bringing yourself up, and we're going to come onto our backs, but make sure you've got a block, okay? Because we're going to make sure that our adductors, our thighs, are working. So coming onto your back, nice, releasing down. And we're going to work on some bridges, okay? Bridge, again, is great for the core. We're going to be firing up the glutes. We're going to be lifting the back. Okay, so we're using that posterior chain again to lift. Okay, so we're doing kind of the same thing. We're lifting the body off the floor using the posterior chain, but this time we're lifting with the front body exposed rather than the front body on the floor. Okay, I find it easier. Maybe you will too. So you're going to grab your block and you're going to take your block between your thighs, squeezing those thighs towards each other. People have a tendency when they come into bridge to just let their knees splail open. The block's going to keep us from doing that. Now, before we come into bridge, we're going to come back to that pelvic movement that we did at the very beginning of the class. So just watching me first, hands are going to be down by the floor. I'm going to demo with my hand what I'm doing. So I'm going to take an inhale. My lower back isn't engaging. As I exhale, I'm going to start to push my lower back down. My tailbone is going to automatically lift. I'm going to squeeze up to the top as high as I can. Then I'm going to start to lower. And what I'm going to do with my hips is I'm going to start to send my butt up, push my lower back down, and then release, and then my tailbone will press down. So it's kind of like a bit of a Mexican wave with your spine. So let's just try the pelvis before we even lift. So let your pelvis go quite neutral, okay, no engagement. Take an inhale. And as you exhale, start to push the lower back down and just lift the tailbone ever so slightly. And then lower, tailbone, and then let the hips kind of lift again. Lower back lift. Take an inhale. As you exhale, press the lower back down. Feel the tailbone slightly lift. Maybe push into the heels. Then lower, keeping the tailbone lifted. Get the lower back to press down, then let the tailbone kind of drop and the lower back will lift. Big inhale. Exhale, press the lower back down. Tailbone will start to lift. Push into the heels, maybe lifting the lower back about an inch off the floor. Then start to lower. I want you to lift the tailbone out of the way so that you can get the vertebrae touching one after the other. And then let the tailbone press down. Lower back will lift. Good, okay. Let's see if we can go all the way up into bridge. Don't worry how high you go, just go to your max. Take an inhale. As you exhale, push lower back down, peel tailbone, press into those heels, squeeze the butt, come as high as you can. Doesn't matter how high you are, okay? You can hold on to the sides of the mat if that makes you feel a little bit safer. Good, okay, let's start to lower, upper back, middle back, start to lift the booty and the tailbone out of the way, trying to get every part of the lower back to touch down. You can lift the heels as well. And then release, let lower back lift, coming back into that neutral. All right, let's give it a go 5 times. Take an inhale. Exhale, press the lower back, push into the heels, tailbone will lift first, then the rest of the back, coming just as high as you can, press into the whole foot, squeeze the butt, and then lower, lifting the tailbone out of the way so you can get the lumbar spine to touch, and then release, lower back will lift. Good, 4 more like that. Big inhale. Exhale, push lower back down. You're gonna feel your hips draw up towards your ribs as you lift. Come to the top, squeeze that block. Don't forget to squeeze the block. And then lower, 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 lower. Lift the tailbone out of the way. Coming all the way down, let the lower back lift. Nice, 3 more. You are in so much control here. Big inhale. Exhale, push that lower back down, peel the tailbone, lift, 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 pushing into the feet, pressing into the block, and then lowering, lifting the tailbone out of the way. You're trying to get every little vertebrae to touch down, and then let those hip bones kind of splail towards the heels. 2 more. Big inhale. Exhale, push lower back down, tailbone lifts, press into the heels, squeeze that block. You've got loads of power, butt is strong, thighs are strong. And then lower, 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 not just slamming the back onto the floor, but using that control. Letting the lower back release, tailbone softens down. Last one here. Big inhale. Exhale, press lower back, tailbone lifts, push into heels, squeeze that block. Good. This time, let's hang out. We're gonna hang out here for 10. You might shuffle your shoulders underneath you slightly. 9. Press into the feet. 8. Squeeze that block. 7. 6. Squeeze the booty. 5. 4. 3. 2. I want you to lift your heels off the floor. This will give you your spine space. Start to lower the upper back, send the butt towards the heels, middle back, lower back, tailbone, releasing down. Good. Taking that block to the side. Take one knee into the chest, then the other, and just give yourself a really nice rock from side to side. Just releasing any tension. Good. So one of the best things to do after core work to kind of recalibrate the spine is a supine twist. So bring your arms into cactus. Bring your feet off the floor. Let's drop our knees to the right. Remember, you can always use a block under your knees if you can't get the knees all the way down. The more the knees are in line with the belly button, the more intense. The further those knees are down towards the feet, the less intense. And then let your left ear just soften to your left shoulder. And we'll just stay here for about 5 breaths. Good. Squeeze the thighs back to center. Take the knees over to the left. This time, letting those ears, or the right ear rather, soften to the right shoulder. Again, if you need the block, guys, just carry the block over. Every exhale, just seeing if you can soften into the twist a little bit more. And then squeezing those knees back to center, wrapping your arms around your knees. Bring the forehead in towards those knees. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And then gently start to release. We're going to come into our Shavasana. So if your legs extended feels like you're pulling on your lower back, it's just because your muscles aren't ready to release yet. Bend the knees and take the feet onto the floor. Let the hands rest on the mat, and I really want you to try to tuck your shoulder blades underneath you. This will open up into the pec and the bicep. Slightly tucking the chin to elongate the neck. Let the hips and the pelvis sink. Let the abdomen soften. And just let everything go. And just staying in your Shavasana as long as you'd like. When you feel like it's time to come out, just take those traditional steps that we take, but really listening to your body, coming out when you feel like you've had enough rest.